Hey guys, I'm Lexi.
And I'm Kayla, and welcome back to our podcast.
Okay, so in this episode, I will be currently in Pennsylvania. So we're pre-recording this a week early, which we don't normally do. So we unfortunately do not have a weekly recap with you guys, because we just filmed last week's episode 5 minutes ago. So it's the same weekly recap. But I do want to get into something that might take us a little bit longer of a podcast to talk about. This I put in my notes at 2:45 in the morning. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is the theory of 3 loves in your life. The whole idea of this podcast is going to be falling in love, so even falling in love with yourself and stuff like that, which we'll get into. But I wanted to start off with this theory of 3 loves that I found. I want to talk about it because I feel as though it has 100% resonated with me. And I feel like you're on the track to have it resonate with you. And most people that I know, it also applies to them. So the first whole theory of this is your first love. And I'm going to read the exact little quotos things off of my phone. But it says that the first love often happens at a young age. You eventually grow apart, calling it quits over silly things. When you get older, you may look back and think that it wasn't love, but the truth is, it was. It was love for what you knew it to be. And remember that there's different depths of love. And for me, I had this boyfriend that I felt I was in love with, and looking back on it, knowing what love is and where I am in my love journey with myself, with my relationship, with all of that, I know that what I felt for him was love, but wasn't a love that would have carried on into a full relationship. And for you, I feel like you can also identify with that. Like your first ever boyfriend, put input wherever, but like you loved him, and at the time it felt like real love, and it still was real love, but it's not in today's standards what you identify love to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into your second love, and this is the part where we're definitely going to have a lot more to talk about, because these are more, your second love, I'll just read it off to you and then you'll kind of see why, but is the hard one. You get hurt in this one. This love teaches us lessons and makes us stronger. This includes great pain, lies, betrayal, abuse, drama, damage. But this is one where we grow, we realize what we love about love, what we don't love about love, and what we now know the difference between good and bad humans. We also become closed, careful, cautious, and considerate after this. And I don't know if you want to go with yours first so that you can start talking a little bit, but for me and for you, this was our second relationship.
So my second love, should we say how long it was?
Yeah.
Okay. So my second love, you would say, we were in a relationship for almost 2.5 years. So that was like my longest ever relationship that I've been in, and yours was too.
Yeah. Mine was almost 4 years.
Yeah, so pretty long, pretty decent time in my life, and they were both around what? Like older high school age. Yeah.
Mine was throughout high school, but...
Yeah, mine was, so we started dating my sophomore year of high school. We met my freshman year, we started dating my sophomore year,
mm-hmm.
and then we dated until, my senior year of high school. And I don't know, I feel like it was, really, really good in the beginning, and then, just drastically got worse. So I feel like in the beginning of the relationship, I feel like I thought that I was, more in love, if that makes
mm-hmm.
sense. I don't know. But I feel like towards the end of the relationship, it just felt like, I don't know, I felt like, I don't know how to explain it, I really don't.
I think for you it was just the definition of love was changing, and it wasn't what you wanted your love to be anymore. So for me, I started off the relationship, my second love relationship, at, I think I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I was going into it, I was getting out of a relationship. I wasn't really getting out of a relationship, but I was getting out of a phase of finding what love was and having the first feelings of love, and I met this person and I was like, this is love. This feels different than my first relationship and I'm ready to explore this with that person. And so I did. And this relationship was also all of my first, like everything with this person was, it was always the first. It was the first, I got my license dating this person. I had my 18th birthday with this person. It was very much like I grew up with this person. And so for that time period, and now that I look back on it, my love for that person comes strictly from experiencing and growing up and experiencing life and all that kind of stuff. And like, we together explored so much of finding ourselves, and I think that eventually is what, grew us apart. We grew up and realized that maybe we weren't the best for each other, and that there was a lot of toxicity and a lot of just overall, we didn't fit together anymore. Yeah. And that's what I think makes it the hardest. And I mean, there was a lot of other stuff inside of that I don't need to get into. But there was a lot of trauma that came with that love, because you go into it at such a young age knowing, okay, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
This is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with.
Okay, I want to add to that too, because like you were saying, like going through a bunch of experiences with that person, especially like graduation too, which you didn't mention, but like is a big part for me. Just like, like going through like big accomplishments in life and like doing all this stuff. Like for me, I was a cheerleader and like I won states. Like that was such a big accomplishment for me, and like I had like somebody to go to and like talk about that and like experience that with. And I think that's like a big part that I learned about like love, is that like I felt like it came along with a bunch of those experiences too, because if I hadn't experienced that with that person, like I feel like I wouldn't feel as strongly towards them. I felt like each time I experienced something big in my life with that person, like I felt like I grew closer to that person and I loved that person like even more.
Going through those accomplishments and having that person with you was the first time that I truly felt a home outside of my family. Yeah. Someone I could go to and talk to, and someone who was always going to support me and help me through all of the life decisions that I was making.
Yeah, and someone who was like proud of you, like always there for you. Just
it was the first, and this could go for like so many other people. But, like, having somebody the first person who isn't your sibling or your parents or your grandparents or, like, family tell you that they're proud of you, it hits different. Yeah. It makes you feel completely different about what, like, it makes you have a different perspective on that person, and it makes you feel love for that person. And I'm a very strong believer that you can, and I think a lot of people are, that you can very much love somebody platonically. Like my best friend Sarah is like my number one rock in the world. Like I'll love her till the day I die. And like having that platonic love is very different than having the support from a relationship type love.
Yeah, and I feel like also because we both went through like these relationships in high school, like high school is probably like one of the hardest times in life you're ever gonna have to go through. Like that is just like a common known fact. But I feel like just having someone there and like constantly, like me and you both like went through just like the hanging out every single day with this person, like being with this person literally 24/7, and I feel like that played in a part not only with like the love, but just like having like a codependency on this person and being like, I need this person to be there for this, like, or I literally and like don't feel capable of doing it without them, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And with what you're saying on that is like having this codependency, I wrote down in my 3 a.m. notes like healing from it and moving forward without closure, because I mean the way our relationships of that time period ended were very differently. For me it was very traumatic and very scary, and want to watch what I say here because I don't want it to be
like rude. We're not trying to be rude about it. Like, that's the thing.
At the end of the day, this person was in my life, and I have grown up from the situation. It's been 4 years now that I've been out of this relationship, and I have the utmost respect for this person as much as I can. As hard as it is, that I've learned that we were different people, we were going through different times, you know. I've grown a lot since then, so I can imagine that he has.
I feel like something that people don't understand is that just because, like, you're dating a person doesn't mean that you guys love the same. Like, obviously, everybody, like, is grown up differently. They see love differently, like, in their parents and their families. Like, they just perceive love differently, like everybody does. And I feel like a lot of people in relationships think that, like, oh, just because I love this way, like, you have to love this way too. Like, you have to be, like, okay and be able to accept that, like, some people, like, have different love languages. Like, some people love differently. Some people express their feelings in different ways. And I feel like that's something that's so hard to understand, but, like, especially after my second relationship, like, it's something that I definitely understand now, is that, like, you know, like, we've grown up so differently, and, like, some people have had, like, great experience, like, seeing love growing up, and, like, some people haven't. And I feel like just the way that we've grown up and just, like, seeing love throughout people in our life, like, is hugely different, and I feel like we perceive it in a different way. And I also feel like just growing up in general, like, I just express my emotions in, like, way different ways than other people do.
But kind of back to the healing of it all, that I never got, unfortunately, from this relationship. I was living in Florida at the time, and he was back in Pennsylvania, and it was getting bad, and we were fighting all the time, and we constantly had disagreements, and that's around the time where I can remember having my first feeling of like, trust issues developed. And, like, unfortunately there was nothing that happened. I guess fortunately, because that would suck, but fortunately there was nothing that actually happened that caused that trust issues. But it was the first time in my life that I've really felt trust issues towards a partner. And I think that because of that, it caused a lot more trouble in the relationship. So the way we ended was very harsh, very dramatic, very everything that you could align with, like, just traumatic. It was screaming and yelling and fighting and obsessively calling each other and obsessively calling each other horrible, disgusting things, and it was just very, very bad. And so one day it was just done, over with, no more talking. And for me, that relationship and I don't want to speak for him in any way, shape, or form, but I can imagine that it was around the same, because both of us cut each other off, blocked each other, never talked to, like, honestly, since that day, maybe have had 3 or 4 conversations since. And I never got healing from it. I never fully healed from that relationship. I never got closure from that relationship, and I can't imagine that he did either. So finding closure for myself was a very long process. And I want to kind of get into maybe how you found closure, because I feel like you had an easier breakup, in a way.
I don't know if I would say easy. It
was more extended, where you could have gotten closure. Yeah. Versus a dramatic, don't ever talk to me again.
Yeah. So I feel like at first, like, I don't know, we went through, like, a couple breakups, I would say. Like, about 2 or, like, 3, maybe. But the first time that we broke up was just, like, I guess, like, traumatic for me, too, because it was just, like, very public, and, like, I feel like a lot of people knew about it just because of, like, things that have happened before, and just, like, people who he was hanging out with after, and, like, people posting stuff about it, like, people, like, one of my, like, my old best friend, like, knew about it, and it's just, like, and she would, like, say stuff about it. I think, like, it was just super public and, like, kind of, like, almost humiliating for me because, like, you know, like, should I talk about getting cheated on? Is that, like, okay? Like,
I mean, if you're okay with
like,
it.
Okay. So, like, it was just publicly humiliating for me because, like, getting cheated on is just not, like, something that, like, you want people to really, like, know about you. I think it's just, like, more humiliating, like, for the girl. Like, I mean, humiliating for anybody who gets cheated on, I feel like. And just, like, after there were videos posted of, like, him with people who he was like, oh, I'm just friends with them, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I found out a lot of stuff from different people because, like, he would just, like, hang out with a lot of people in my hometown, and I just, like, it, like, made me uncomfortable, because I felt uncomfortable going out in my own hometown and, like, being afraid I was gonna see him. Like, he worked there, like, he was there all the time, so it's just, like, kind of, like, almost scary for me at this point, because, like, there would be a lot of girls that would come at me for it, like, and I would, like, feel like nobody could defend me, and I couldn't even defend myself, because I felt like I was getting hated on because, like, I was his girlfriend, and, like, these girls wanted him, and, like, I was just trying to, like, you know, get rid of it, like, not talk about it. I think one of the mistakes that I did make is posting stuff about it, too. Like, I should have never done that in the first place, and I regret it every day since, because making it publicly and making everybody know about it just gets people to talk about it and make up rumors, and then that's when, like, you know, like, things start to get spread around about you and about other people, because the second time that, like, wait, is that your leg? Yeah. Okay, I thought, because, see how the light? Okay. But yeah, just things, like, being posted publicly, like, it's just, like, that's when rumors get made up, that's when stuff gets said, like, to, like, your ex about, like, things that aren't true, and then they think that you're a bad person, that you're saying stuff about them. Just, like, it's not good to make it public at all, and I, like, regret doing that, and I will probably never ever do that again if I go through another breakup, because I feel like that was the most traumatic part about it. It's just, like, having everybody know about it and having everybody talk about it. Because there was days, like, I would want to, like, rant about it and just talk about it. And then there were days that, like, people would talk about it, and I'm like, guys, I just don't want to hear about it today. You know what I mean? So
I think also, and I don't want to, like, again, put these people, like, on blast, because
like, we don't hate these people. Like, I
know. I think that I did for a while, but I've kind of come to a conclusion that hating somebody that I once loved is only gonna hurt me and make me think about it more, and so I've kind of closed it and zipped it up and put it away, and I have no more hatred, I have no more, like, whatever on it. I feel numb about it. I have no opinion.
Like, at the end of the day, like, there's still people, like, people make mistakes, and, like, even if it was intentional or not intentional, like, they're gonna realize one day that they, like, messed up, and that's on them, and just some people, like, aren't made to love each other, and I feel like...
And I think that some people are also made to be in your life for, I guess, kind of how this is saying, in
a short amount of time.
Like, just, they're there to prove to you what you love about love, what you don't love about love, what you want in a relationship, what you don't want in a relationship.
And honestly, like, I feel like this person, like, my ex, I feel like he really helped me, like, find out truly, like, how I want to be treated, because, like, yeah, like, my first love, while I was young, but, like, this was high school, and this was, like, me growing up, like, going through everything emotionally wise, and I feel like I really learned, like, the way that I wanted to be treated, and, like, how I wanted things to go in a relationship, and, like, personally, like, boundaries, I think, is a really big thing, and I definitely didn't set those in the beginning, and I feel like going into, like, a new relationship, like, it's so important to have boundaries, because if you don't know the other person's boundaries, you never know when you're, like, you're hurting their feelings. Like, you could do something that you think is perfectly okay, and it can be tearing this person apart, and you just don't know.
Exactly. And I think that also that, like, through these relationships, we've also, I mean, I know for a fact now that I'm in that third phase of love and being with somebody who I see myself with for the rest of my life and all that kind of stuff, I can confidently say that what I learned and how I was treated in that second relationship, I have had a handful of things that I have carried into this new relationship, and I've said, you know what, this I loved when he did this, and I want, you know, my future to have that in it.
Yeah.
And I know exactly how I want to be treated, and a lot of those things were done in that second relation, with my ex, but a lot of things weren't. And I noticed that, you know, there was just little things that were part of him that I couldn't put up with for the rest of my life. And so if I could find all of his best qualities in somebody else, then, you know, I'm just growing. You're growing, you're learning, and you're finding out, you know, what you like and what you don't like. But I think that we can, I think that this is also kind of goes along with the closure of it all too, is that I was the one that broke up with him. So although I was the victim of a lot of things, I was painted to be the villain at the end of the relationship. And I think that was the hardest part, because a lot of people didn't believe what I would say about what happened, and he would kind of shut it down and stuff like that. And because we were a relationship so long through high school, all of my friend group was his friend group. And so we had the same friends, so I didn't really have too many people that I could go to, and if I did want to go to them and talk about it, they had already heard his side of it, which was the opposite side and the exact opposite of what I was going to say. So it was just like it felt very dark in that moment, and I shut down. I completely shut away, and I was just ready for it to just be done.
Yeah. Going along with that, me and my ex were in the same friend group too, so it was my friends and then his friends, and then we just kind of came together. But there were some people in his friend group too that I became really close with, and I think that's a part that also sucks too, is not only are you losing that person, but you're losing those friends too. And for me, I didn't really talk about my closure part, but personally, it hasn't really been that long.
Yeah.
But, I do think I've had, a little bit of closure. We've talked about it before. I still, sometimes, not always, but, we would talk about it for a little bit, and then we would stop talking again. But, I feel I got a little bit of closure. I feel we've been able to, be mature about it and talk about it and be hey, listen, this was obviously wrong, and, apologize for it. And, be hey, I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings. It's obvious that we're just not right for each other, and, we love differently, and, it's okay. And, I've forgiven him. I understand that, it's okay to make mistakes. There's times in life where you just need more, and that's completely okay. If I can't give him more and he feels the need that he needs more, then that is perfectly okay, for him to go and find what he needs, because, in my opinion, if I'm not getting what I, that sounds horrible, but, if I'm not getting what I need in a relationship, then, that's gonna make me want to go look for it somewhere else. Yeah. So it's just,
and if you're not giving him what he needs, that's not fair to him.
Exactly.
So it's, it balances itself out, but
I feel you have to understand in specific situations, especially, ones on getting cheated on, not every, time it's, yeah, it's fair that he cheated on you or whatever, and it's okay. But I'm just saying that, put yourself in those, that person's shoes, and understand that, either you need to grow up and you need to change for that person, and you need to understand that they need some things in a relationship that, you should be able to give to them, or accept the fact that you can't give that person that, and you have to, move on from it.
Yeah. I think that's great that you guys had that, because that's something that I wish I had. I have tried to get closure, and I haven't lately, but up until even my first year with Nolan, being dating Nolan, even into my first year of dating him, I had tried to reach out to get closure with my ex, because it is something that I think I'll always need. I think that it'll always not live rent free in my head, but in a way, it'll always live on the back burner that anytime that we've ever had to have a conversation, anytime we've ever tried to have a conversation to get closure, it has always ended in a fight.
It's just like sometimes all you want in a person is just to like have them accept the fact that, you know, they made mistakes and like understand that like you weren't the only person who did wrong in the relationship. Like me and my ex were both able to understand that we both made mistakes in the relationship and we both messed up, and like that's okay, but we like need to move on from it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I think that I've gotten to a point like today that I feel like that having that closure, it in retrospect would be great, but I've also these past 3 years that I've really 100% been focusing on moving forward, falling in love with myself again, and so that I can better the relationship that I am in. I feel that closure may open wounds that don't need to be reopened, and that I just have to always remember that it's kind of just how it is. It ended how it is. It's never going to. Unfortunately, there is never going to be an I'm sorry from him, and that's just how it is.
I feel like unfortunately sometimes, especially like since we like both started dating them in high school, like some people just aren't mature enough to love, and that's completely okay. Like you know, people grow up at different times in their life. Like some people feel the need that they need to grow up and be mature about like relationships super young, and some people feel the need that they can just fool around and mess around because like it doesn't like matter. But I feel like for both of us especially, like I feel like super young, like we've just like understood like how a relationship is supposed to be, and like kind of like a little bit of an understanding about like how somebody else should be treated and what we should not do to somebody, and like, you know, if you have feelings for somebody else, to like break out of a relationship, to never cheat on someone. Like we've always grown up just learning that. And I feel like some people like, you know, like they have family issues and that really does affect them. It, like
and I also think that people will always create a narrative in their head and believe it, and especially in like my last relationship, like I probably could say to this day that he 100% believes I cheated on him, and I never did. But he created that narrative. He felt that's what I did. He felt that maybe the way I disrespected him towards the end of the relationship was enough to call it cheating. And I've also come to terms with that too, because it's like, no, I in my head I didn't do what my definition of cheating is. But again, back to boundaries, we never set those boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were too young to even really understand what boundaries were when we first started dating. So no, I wasn't like, you know, talking or hooking up or doing whatever with another guy, but I did expand my friend group and got closer with a lot of guys, and I befriended those people and got to know them and hung out with them, and in his head that could have been, you know, disrespectful to him. But yeah, in his head I think that what he thought was what I did was disrespectful, and you know, I may have never, you know, I think that I've recently come to that conclusion, so, you know, the I'm sorries didn't come from either side. I never said it, he never said it, and that's why closure was so hard. But I think that that's kind of that, and we have to move forward no matter what.
I feel like a big part about it is that, like, sometimes, like, you don't understand, like, you don't fully understand, like, that you're disrespecting someone, or you don't do that on purpose, you know what I mean? Like, there can be things that you do that feel disrespectful to other people, and there can be things that they do that feel disrespectful to you, and if you don't communicate that right, like, it can really mess up things. And I think that was, like, one of my big problems, is that, like, communication was just not a thing in my relationship, and we just wouldn't communicate our feelings, but, like, we were always thinking the same thing, and, like, after we would talk about it, we would figure that out eventually, but, like, at the time, like, we would just kind of shut down and not talk about things, and I feel like that was a big problem, and, like, we both kind of had that, like, way of, like, holding in our feelings growing up, so I feel like, you know, it's nice to talk about things, and, like, even if it's hard to talk about and it's a hard situation, like, it's always good to talk about it and understand that, like, even though you didn't mean to disrespect that person, like, it could still feel disrespectful to them. And I feel like that's where, like, closure comes from. It's not only, like, being like, oh, like, this is how I feel and, like, this is how you should feel. Like, you should never tell somebody that, like, they should feel a certain way. Like, it's okay for somebody to, like, feel however they feel, because, like, that's just how it is. Like,
exactly. And I think that communication is a big aspect and something that I've brought into my current relationship that is, like, 100% like a 180 flip from every other relationship that I've ever had, because communication is so important. And before we get into, like, the third love and everything, I just wanted to bring up, like, falling in love with yourself, because that's something that I had to learn after my last relationship, because I had grown up so long, and I think that you're kind of in this area right now. And, you know, when you're with somebody for so long, and especially your, like, vital growing up, finding yourself years, once you're out of that, you need to, like, learn how to build that other half of yourself up that was filled by somebody else for so long. And this took me a very long time, and I don't ever think that you're finished doing it. I think that I'm still learning and all that kind of stuff about myself and what I personally like and don't like. But falling back in love with myself was probably the hardest part, because I had felt for a good, like, year after the relationship that something was missing. Something, I needed to change something. And that's when I feel like I started to almost spiral. And I started getting a lot of tattoos, and I started dyeing my hair and cutting my hair and doing my makeup differently, and all these physical things kept changing. And I was like, I don't want to be that person that he used to love. And it was something that I had to, like, grow up and decide that I was that person, and that person who he did love is who I am today, and that there's no getting rid of, like, that part of me. I need to learn to develop and love myself, even though something that hurt me used to love something about me that I also love.
I think, like, a big thing for me, especially, like, what I've learned ever since, like, our breakup, is that, like, your mindset is, like, the most important thing, and it's what's, like, gonna get you through your entire life. But, like, just thinking positively about the situation, and, like, thinking about, like, the good things that are gonna come from it is just, like, what kind of helps me the best is just, like, knowing that, like, you know, there's somebody out there that is going to be able to, like, treat me in a way that I want to be treated. Like, you should never feel the need to hide, like, your feelings, and, like, hide, I don't know how to explain it, but, like, hide the way that you want to be loved, because you feel that this person is going to be able to change and do that for you. But, like, all along, there's someone out there that is willing to do all the things that you, like, need, and, like...
And there is somebody out there, and I can see that in my relationship now, that there's little things that bother me, and for someone to look at me and say, I will change for you, instead of me expecting them to, or begging them to, or whatever it is, like, there's some, and I feel the same way for him. If there's something that I'm doing, that, you know, Nolan doesn't like, I'm willing to change that, because I love this person. It's not that it's a bad thing that I'm willing to change, and he's not expecting me to change. But he has a way of needing to be loved, and because I'm mature, and because we've grown up out of that, like, immature phase of love, we've realized that there are things that, you know, I'm not perfect, and he's not perfect, and expecting someone to change is hard, but if they're willing to put in the work to change, to make the relationship better, that's, like, one step closer to, like, having that true, pure love.
Yeah, I think that's, like, that's a way to know if somebody loves you, is if they're willing to change for you, because it's not like you're being like, oh, your hair color's ugly, dye your hair blonde and it'll be prettier, like, and I'll like you more. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about changing your mindset for another person and understanding that, you know, like I said, like, people love differently and people have different love languages, and understanding that, like, there's certain things that people want you to do for them in order for them to feel that love. And if you truly do and love and care about that person, you want to do that for them because you love them. You
want them to feel the love. And like, especially with love languages, like, that's such a big thing of being like, for my personal love language is like words of affirmation and acts of service. And for Nolan, it's more the acts of service type of, I mean, I think we have similar to the same love languages, but his is definitely more acts of service. But my giving love language is gifts. I love to give Nolan things. I love to buy him things. I'll be in the store, I'll say, okay, this is Nolan, I need it. I need to give it to him. And we've communicated that, although he does love when I point out that I got this for him because it reminded me of him. He needs the love in a sense of, you know, maybe he's feeling tired after a long day and I need to do the dishes or I need to take out the dog. And I think that that's something, we're in that phase right now of kind of changing it over, but for a while I was like, how do you not feel my love that I'm giving you because I buy you all these things and I'm doing all this stuff for you? But really deep down, the way he wanted to feel loved was by me helping him out with something instead of spending my money on something. And that gets into, like, what you were saying is, like, so many people have different types of love that they need and that they want to give. Yeah. And if you're willing to change that for somebody, that's not you changing who you are. It's just changing the way that you do something so that other person can feel the love that you're trying to give them.
And I think that was, like, a problem I went through with my last relationship, too, is because, like, we didn't really know each other's love languages and we never really talked about it. And, like, one of mine was, like, kind of just like you said, like, I don't know, like,
acts of service.
Like, kind of, yeah. I would always, like, you know, like, receiving, like, stuff from him and not saying that, like, oh my god, I just wanted him to buy me things. Like, that is not true. Like, I'm
gift giving.
Yeah, gift giving is, like, one of my love languages. And, like, I, like, personally felt that, like, there were times that, I don't know, like, flowers and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, every girl wants flowers, and I think everybody can agree on that one. And it's just, like, you, like, want your boyfriend to get you flowers, and it's just, like, when you feel like you have to ask for certain things, it, like, almost just feels, like, weird, because I don't want to be like, I want you to buy me flowers, like, but it's just, like, it's to know that somebody cares about you enough to buy you flowers or to write you a note or just, like, stuff like that. Like, it's not just about spending money. It's just about, like, showing that person physically that, like, hey, I was thinking about you today. Like, hey, I know you're having a bad day. Like, I want to make it better. Like, here are some flowers. And, like, I'm not saying that he never did that, because he did. And, like, I appreciated that so much. But there was just certain times, especially towards the end of our relationship, where I felt like I was almost kind of asking for it, and, like, that's not fun. It's never fun to, like want to ask somebody for something. I, like, hate asking anybody for anything, like, just in general.
And, I mean, gift giving is an actual love language. It's not just, like, so it doesn't fall under being, like, materialistic.
Like, whenever somebody buys you something or, like, gives you, like, a card or something like that, like, it makes you feel loved, and I feel like, I don't know, especially just, like, because of my dad and the way that I've grown up, like, he's always, like, when we went to the gas station, like, he would come back with a snack for me, and I wouldn't even have to ask for it. Like, I feel like just growing up and, like, having my dad show me, like, that's how, like, he loves me, and I get everybody can't do that, and that's completely okay. I get that sometimes it's hard for people with money, and I'm not saying that, like, you have to do this for me every single day, but once in a while, you know, it's nice to, like, feel loved and, like...
Yeah, I think that most people's love languages do develop over time from how their parents treated them and stuff like that, too, because I feel like whether it was how their parents did something for them, like our dad would, go and do it, or I think it mainly started when our dad would travel for work. He would always come back with a little webkin for us. Throwback to when webkins were a thing. Real. But he would always come back with the little webkins for us so that we had something, to do while he was gone and all this kind of stuff. But that's where I think our kind of gift-giving love language came from. And so it also may be from something that people are lacking. Some people's parents, may have never, told them how proud of them they were or something like that. So in a future relationship, that's what that person's looking for.
Yeah.
And without communication, it's really hard to discover what that person's love language is. Because you will do the normal things in a relationship, like buying them an anniversary gift or buying them flowers or saying how proud of them you are. And they might really like that, but they might also be lacking in another area where they need more of something.
Yeah, like you might think that, oh, you're doing the most because you're buying them everything, but if that's not that person's love language, then they could also be like, seeking for something else, and like you're just like, why doesn't this person love me? Like I buy them everything. Like yeah. I literally get them gifts all the time. Like they have to love me. Like I feel like that's where people like get so frustrated in relationships. It's just like, I'm doing so much for this person, like why don't they feel loved? It's because they're lacking something in like another like love language. Yeah. They're like lacking something in another love language that they feel that they need, and it's just like people don't communicate that. And that's why like I feel like a lot of people break up is because they don't understand how their partner wants to feel loved. Like they don't
Exactly. And I want to get into, like, your third love, because I feel like, one, our conversation's going that way, and two, I have, I feel like into, like, the rest of what I want to say has a lot to do with this third love. And I think that, I'm right now in my third love. When I read this, I see it exactly how it happened, and I can kind of get into that. But for you, I feel like yours is coming, and I feel like in between,
let's go.
I feel like in between that second and third love is when I wanted to bring up the, falling in love with yourself, because I feel like once you start doing that, that's when this third love comes along.
Mm-hmm.
And for the third love, it says, this one comes blindly, there's no warning signs, it creeps up on you slightly. You don't go looking for this love, it comes to you. You can put up any walls you want, they'll be broken down. You find yourself caring about that person without trying. They look nothing like your usual crush types, but you get lost in their eyes daily. You see beauty in their imperfections. You hide nothing from them. You want marriage and family with them, and you thank the universe for them. You truly love them. And in my experience with that is exactly how it happened. When I met Nolan years ago, back when I was in, like, I want to say 5th or 6th grade, and we dated here or there in 5th and 6th grade. Like, we had that, like, middle school, grade school relationship where it was just, like, texting, FaceTiming, all that. We never really hung out or anything like that. But we carried that out up until around high school, and then I got in my relationship with my ex, and Nolan and I cut it off. And then after I went through the healing journey of finding the love for myself and learning to fall in love with myself again, COVID happened, and I came home, and I was living at home, and I was really, really pushing and dedicating to, like, loving myself. I was doing all the things that I was looking for in a partner for myself. I was working really hard and telling myself how proud I am of myself for, growing up and going out and moving on and all this kind of stuff. And one day, randomly, COVID was a rough time. We talked about in our first podcast episode how all of us in the house together were just, like, clashing heads and banging against walls, and, like, it was just not the best. So I was like, you know what, I need to leave for the night. And I didn't know where I was gonna go. It was a very scary experience for me, because I had felt very, I don't even know what feeling I was feeling, but I had felt like I was working so hard to be happy with myself, happy with my family, happy with where I was in life, and that day, it all just, like, hit a wall, and I was, like, I don't want to say, like, I was depressed, but I wouldn't say, like, depressed.
Yeah.
So that's a big word to use, but I was in a very, very dark place at that time, and so I had left the house. I said, I'm going to sleep over at a friend's house. I didn't know where I was going. I had no clue where I was going. But at this point, I had been talking to Nolan for like a week. We had reconnected, and we were talking for about a week. And I called him, and I was like, bawling my eyes out, and I was like, this poor man, I am trauma dumping on this person who I haven't talked to since 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trauma dumping on this person. And instantly he was like, well, I'm not home right now. I'm at a friend's house. Come over. Stay the night. Just come over. And I did. And looking back on it, I was like, why did I do that? Like, that's not like me at all. That's not who I am. I'm just not gonna go show up at some random person's house who I've never met before and sleep over their house. And then also, like, the random person was not Nolan. I knew Nolan. I knew that I was safe going over there. But his friend's house, he was at his friend's house. I didn't know this friend. I had no clue who this friend was. This friend lived by himself. So I was going to this friend's house that he owned, not like his parents' house. And it was just like a YOLO moment, honestly. I was just like, I'm just gonna do it. So I went, and honestly, as cliche as it sounds, the rest is history. Like, I don't think since that day, Nolan and I have spent more than maybe 1 to 2 days apart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it comes in, as like the third love being so blindly. Like, I wasn't looking for a relationship. He wasn't looking for a relationship. I was trying to find that, like, self-love, self-healing moment, and it just, like, stumbled into his hands. And, that's what I see coming for you in the future. And I think that, now that you're down here, I can see it a lot more of, like, the self-healing journey.
Yeah, I just want to talk about, so I feel like in my last relationship, I felt like a big problem that I had, and I feel like even just like talking to people in general, I feel like I still have it, so I've been trying to work on it like really well, but codependency is just like a big thing in my life. I feel like I've always been like codependent on other people just for like my feelings in general, and just like always needing somebody to go talk to. I could never just like be with myself with my own feelings, you know what I mean? Like, I always needed somebody to talk to and like complain like to them about things. And I feel like my ex was like the one person like that I would go to about anything, and I felt like when like we broke up, I wasn't able to go to him, and I just like felt lost because I didn't know how to deal with my own problems, because I would always expect him to just deal with them. And I felt like, you know, putting that on someone is like honestly like really hard and like scary for somebody, because like I was letting this person, like the way they acted and the way that they did certain things, like I was letting that affect the way that I was feeling on a day-to-day basis. And like if they weren't texting me as much, like I would like be upset about it, and it would like ruin my day. And it's just like I'm trying to work on being more independent in myself and, like, my feelings. And I'm trying to understand that, like, I don't... Sorry, I thought that was Rocky. And I'm trying to understand that, like, I don't need somebody there in order for, like, me to be okay. I don't need to always have somebody to talk to. I don't need to, like, you know, depend on somebody for my day to be good. Like, I just need to learn that, like, it's okay to be alone. And I feel like it's like a very scary feeling, but I feel like it's also like relieving at the same time to know that like you can be there for yourself. And like there's things that like I do that like help me when I'm upset. Like if I'm upset, like I'll go to the gym and I'll lift weights and I'll, you know, take my anger out on that. And it's just like doing that now like makes me feel so good, and just being able to like go places by myself and like do things alone. It just like it's like a freeing feeling, and understanding that like, you know, I can be independent and I can be like the person I am. And I feel like going into like a new relationship and going into like my future relationships, I need to understand that like I can't always go to that person with all my problems, and like there are certain things in life that like you can't, like somebody can't fix for you, and you have to fix it for yourself. And I felt like I was always going to him and putting my problems on him and like doing all that, and I felt like that put a lot of pressure on him and like almost made him kind of like take a step back and be like, I'm not here to do that for you, you know what I mean? Like there's some things that you have to deal with yourself.
Yeah, and I think that I can also relate to that in a sense that the way Nolan and I's relationship is, it's very, like, okay, so we started dating, and then 3 months later, we moved across the country together, so we never had that, we didn't have enough time to learn, set, and communicate those boundaries before we moved in together, which, in retrospect, I would not fully recommend for anybody else. I think that you should learn your partner before you decide to make the jump of moving in together. But for Nolan and I, it was very, it had to be quick. I was going back to school, and COVID was over, and it was either we move in together and figure it out, or we break up.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at this because I remember this story of like when you moved back to Florida and Nolan was like still in Pennsylvania, and he literally like Nolan's mom called Lexi and Nolan was like on the couch wrapped in Lexi's blanket literally crying.
Because we originally we had decided we were going to move in with each other, and then like 3 weeks before we were like, we can't do this. Like it was very much on both parts, it was very scary. We did not know what was going to happen. We had both just gotten out of, somewhat gotten out of, it had been like around a year for both of us, gotten out of pretty bad relationships, or badly ending relationships, so we were not ready to make such a commitment off the jump right away, but it was like, we either had to or we weren't, and then right before I moved, we decided, okay, we'll try the long distance thing, but we're both not good at it. We're both not okay with it fully. And so I had started driving to Florida with you. You and I packed up my car and started driving. And like halfway through the drive, he called me and was like, I'm coming down. And then we decided I would live in Florida for a month, and then he would move in January, because I moved in December. And so then we did have that month away from each other, which I think, like they always say, like, distance makes the heart grow fonder or whatever. I think that really also proved to us that we could make it work living together, because we were like, through that time of separation where we were in different states, we definitely learned he kind of was able to find closure in moving away from his entire family. And I had already been living away, but I was finding closure in the, life that I was living. I was, I had gotten into this relationship when I was back in Pennsylvania during COVID, and I was thinking about, this life is great. I love him. I want to be with him. All these things. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I have this life in Miami who is not this person who's living in Pennsylvania. And when I go back to Florida, I have this whole life waiting for me. This whole, life of freedom. And my parents aren't living there. I'm on my own. And I was doing so good. And now I'm in a relationship again. And if it ends badly, it was a very scary experience. And we learned through all of that, and then moving in together and all that even now, we will sometimes we call it trauma dumping on each other, but we take these small minuscule issues that we have with ourselves and we dump them on each other. And we've been learning so hard and doing everything we can to stop that, because you were saying, when you put somebody through so much of your own, like, shit, it drags them down with you. And then that could cause the relationship to have a lot of bumps.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're putting all your problems on somebody who also has problems, they're not, yes, he's my boyfriend and he's going to be there for me to hear me through everything, but he's not my therapist.
And it's okay, I think it's okay to talk about your problems with, like, your partner, but it's not okay to make your problems their problem.
Or expect them to solve your problems.
Yeah. Okay, so like I was saying is, you shouldn't, like, it's okay to talk about your problems with your partner, but it's not okay to make your problem their problem and expect them to be able to fix it for you.
Sorry about that. Nolan just called us. But, at the end of the day, I think that this 3-love thing is very real, and I think that I've entered that 3rd love phase, and I'm really excited that, you know, my future that I have with Nolan is very bright and very strong, and I think that you're coming to that self-healing and falling back in love with yourself, which will only help you find that forever person.
And I feel like I'm kind of also, like, happy that I'm in this stage right now, because personally I feel like living in a dorm and, like, doing this, and, like, if I were in a relationship, I feel like I would honestly be, like, going crazy right now. Like, I just feel like that's the way that I am. So I'm kind of glad that I'm here, and I'm glad where I'm at, and I'm glad that the things that have happened to me in the best way possible. And I'm just trying to see, like, the positive outlook of it and not look at the negatives, because I have for way too long.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that we've both come to, I mean, this is not the first time that we've talked about this. Like I've said, this podcast is a deep dive into conversations that we have all the time. And, so I think that, you know, we have come to the conclusion that we have no hate for anybody that was in our past, and we have the most respect for them because,
that's why we are the way we are today.
They taught us lessons that we needed to learn, and they put us through things that we needed to go through. And, you know, as, like, last week's episode where we talked about, you know, going to Catholic school for so long, I personally believe that, like, God put those people in my life, and whoever you believe in puts people in your life so that you can learn, that you can grow, that you can discover what you need from people and what you don't need from people. And
like, going along with that, like, I know, like, not everyone's religious, but, like, I believe that, you know, God has a plan for me, and, like, he will put the people who are, like, supposed to be in my life, and he's going to take the people who aren't supposed to be in my life or are supposed to teach me a lesson out of my life. So
I actually heard this great quote once. We can finish it out right after this, but even if you don't believe in God, just pretend that the word God is whoever you believe in or whatever.
The universe, multiple gods,
exactly.
anything.
But I heard this quote once that the people who are no longer in your life was just God hearing conversations that you never heard.
Exactly. You never know what people are saying about you, and even if you think that they love you, that might not be the truth.
Not necessarily that they don't love you, but you know, I mean, I know personally, I go to bed at night and I talk to God about things that I don't like that people do, and he has taken those people out of my life. And not you, but I'm saying, like,
no, I'm just like
even if it's something simple as, like, oh, like, you know, I've discovered today that I don't like when so-and-so talks to me that way. And it hurts my feelings when they talk to me that way. And I've noticed that, you know, things have changed since I say those things. And it might be whatever you believe in, but, you know, I think that there's a reason somebody's in your life, and there's a reason somebody exits your life.
Mm-hmm. And if you're going through a breakup right now, just know that things do get better for you, and that there's a plan for you by whoever.
Exactly. And if you're going through a really bad breakup right now and you feel like there's no getting better, just remember, you might be on your second love. And there's a third one out there coming your way when you won't know. Mm-hmm. But other than that, if this is a short episode, I don't know how long it'll be after I'm done editing. But hope you guys had a good one. I know this is, like, a little bit different than what we normally talk about, I guess.
And love yourself always.
Yes. But we'll be back to a regular podcast next week when I get back from Pennsylvania. So, you know, do all the little thingies, like, comment, subscribe.
If you want us to talk about anything specific, please leave it in the comments on, like, our Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah. Let us know exactly what you want to hear from us. Or if you have any questions. I mean, we are no experts on love, but we have been through our fair share of experiences with it and different types of experiences with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to, you know, answer any questions that you guys might have about it. But other than that, bye!